I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item C, adjustments to the agenda.
Yes, for the board's consideration, I would recommend that we add under item J, new business, number 4, acknowledgement and acceptance of policy committee review, and to renumber the previous 4 through 7 to be 5 through 8.
I move that we adjust the menu as the superintendent just noted.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Item D, approval of minutes, March 20th, 2018.
I make a motion we approve the minutes as presented.
I second that.
Discussion? All those in favor? And I'm going to abstain. Item E, communications and correspondence.
I have 3 letters, 2 of retirement and 1 of resignation that I will take up under my report.
Thank you. Item F, public participation. Item G, administrative board reports. Mr. Clifford.
Good evening. You have my report. A couple of things I want to touch on that aren't in my report was first, last Monday and Tuesday, we went on our last Melmac trip. And so we had sophomores and juniors. On Monday, we went to Kennebec Valley Community College. And then we went to Thomas College, then Colby College, and spent the night in Augusta. And then the next morning, we went to UMaine Augusta. Met Louis Lucchini at the State House, gave us a tour of the State House, and then on the way back, went to Chimbro. And it was a great 2 days. We had 29 students, and it was the guidance department and Melmac committee did a great job of preparing us and the students for the trip. Kids asked great questions, and they saw very different variations of colleges from 2-year schools to a school like Colby, and it was a lot of fun. Kids had a great time, and it was a great experience for the kids. The other is today had the SAT today, so we had 106 juniors take the SAT. A really long day at Maine Baptist Church, Maine Coast Baptist, and kids did a great job. They were terrific, and just walking around in all the rooms, they were really trying hard and concentrating, and it was a long day for them, and walking out, they looked tired. They really did, but I was really happy with their effort. They did a really good job, great attitude. And Krista Willett, she was the MPA Principals Award recipient. She and I went to a luncheon on Saturday, and she received her award. They drew 10 $1,000 scholarships. Her name wasn't drawn, but we had a great time, and that's one of the best awards that any senior can have. And she's a great kid. She's definitely going to Colby next year. She decided this past weekend, and she'll have a great future. Any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
The Melmac grant is, when you say you took 29 students, are those seniors, juniors?
They were sophomores and juniors.
Sophomores and juniors, okay.
Yeah, we found out last week that we didn't get another year for the Melmac, or another 3 years, so it was consider our last trip right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Newitt.
Hi there. I'd like to start out with something that's not on my report because it just happened today. Fifth grader Griffin Merrill won a $1,000 prize for the map he submitted to OSHAMaps.com contest which we've been voting for him like for the last week, because he was one of 10 finalists, and you vote for your favorite map out of this contest, and you know, it was really great. I got a call before morning announcements from Mrs. Martell this morning to say, Mr. Nord, I have great news, and so I added that to morning announcements, and I know particularly Phi Martell was extremely happy, all those kids in there, and I saw Griffin at lunch, and he had a big smile on his face. Also good is that $500 of that goes to the school, so he gets 500 and the school gets 500. So it's kind of a neat thing to have happen on a Tuesday morning. Perhaps a little less exciting is that MEA testing has concluded. We're really glad about that. So are the 3rd through 8th graders. We have just a couple more kids to get makeups done. 5th graders and 8th graders will continue MEA testing when they get back from vacation, because those are the 2 grades which get science testing. So we've had great success using our new computers all the way up the line, but the science MEA is back on paper and pencil. Sometimes PE doesn't get mentioned too much, but I'd like to say it's been really kind of fun over the last few weeks to see what's gone on in physical education. Mr. McDonald has done floor hockey and rollerblading, and the rollerblading in particular is pretty cool when he has all those kids in blades and helmets and all the, you know, safety gear and whizzing around. Some kids are whizzing around, and other kids got these chairs on with wheels that are holding them up, and they make their way around, but it's a lot of fun. This Thursday, 2 of our grades, 6th grade and 8th grade, will go to the Ellsworth Public Library to meet with Jennifer Richard Jacobson. She's written 2 books. 8th grade has read one of them. 6th grade is reading the other, Small as an Elephant and Paper Things. So they'll get to meet with the author and learn about her process. In co-curricular news, jazz band and show choir both went to their state jazz festivals. Jazz band finished with a 2 rating. The show choir got honorable mention, which they were a lot less thrilled with that than they were with the choreography award, which was very, very prestigious. Baseball and softball tryouts took place last week. I know that there were no kids cut on the softball team. The baseball team, about 13 kids had to not make one of the 2 teams. All the coaches for baseball have returned. Our track team is headed up this year by Paul Locke. He was a head coach last year. He's running the show now with his assistants, and 2 of them are new, Stacy Bousquet and Kate Anderson. One thing I'll also add is we have auditions for our spring musical coming up on Monday and Tuesday after vacation. In parent news, we have a spring sports meeting tomorrow at 6, and we have a drama club. Well, I'll get to that. Drama club meeting is also after vacation, and it's way off a bit, but 8th grade graduation right now is set for Tuesday, June 19th, which is the evening before the last day of school. That would be 6 o'clock. Love to see you there if you can make it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Ms. Gabrianelli?
Good evening. Literacy Day took place on March 22nd with poet Brian Estes, and he was a huge hit. He was performed his poems for us with a ukulele and had the kids kind of dancing and singing along. He was a lot of fun, had some funky slippers, and his poems definitely have a lot of kid humor in them for sure. So that was fantastic, and we want to express our gratitude to the PTF for arranging that for our students because it was a fantastic day. Much like Mr. Newitt's sentiment, we are wrapping up MEA testing for 3rd and 4th graders. So that will wrap up this week, and we are excited about wrapping that up. And then Mrs. Cox has completed kindergarten registration, the first round of kindergarten registration, and she'll be doing another round on May 2nd for those who could not attend the first round of registration. Parent news, Thursday, April 12th, Music Makers concert at 6 p.m. April 13th is our Inside Out Spirit Day. Thursday, April 26th is the 3rd grade concert and art show. And our rescheduled Literacy Night with poet Brian Estes is going to take place on May 8th. We got snowed out, so on March 22nd. So it'll be taking place on May 8th. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mrs. Bowles?
Good evening. I'm also going to add a couple things that are not in my report. Yesterday, we were thrilled to have our students go to Augusta and be honored at the State House for their medal winnings at Skills USA. It's the first time that state champions for Skills USA have been invited to the State House. So the bus left at 6:45 in the morning, and we took our busload of kids down to Augusta to spend the day. They were honored, and they actually got to watch legislation in action a little bit in the Senate House yesterday, so that was a great experience for our kids. Speaking of skills, we've had two big events this past week. A huge thank you to Tim McCarthy and his staff at Pat's Pizza for allowing us to do the Tip a Skills student from 5 to 7 last Monday. We had our largest showing ever, raising $1,600 in that 2-hour time span. Usually we raise about $800. So this was a huge event for us. And then this past Saturday, we actually had our spring middle school camp, and we had 62 middle schoolers come again from all over Hancock County. So that was a great event, and we offered, for 3 hours, we offered middle school activities in each of our different programs for kids to participate in. And we had a bunch of high school kids do community service hours during that time and volunteer at the event. So it's always a fun morning for us. I also want to thank the Rotary Club. The Rotary Club of Ellsworth does a ton for HCTC. Not only do they do our CTE Student of the Month event every couple of months, but they're just generally very supportive of our school. And this year was actually the 10-year anniversary of our partnership with Rotary Club. And so they invited me to do a presentation to the club about the history of HCTC over the last 10 years, how it's changed, what do our programs look like now. And it was very well received. They were very excited. They're very excited about our success with skills, asked all about our construction application, and we're just very inquisitive and wondering about the future of HCTC and what's on the horizon for us. So I want to thank them for their continued support of us. I was very surprised when they honored me with a presidential citation for our work at our school through the Rotary Club and everything that we do in conjunction with them. So we were really thrilled about that, and that they continue to honor our school the way that they do. On March 31st, our multimedia design program was excited to go to Waterville for the first ever Maine Student Film and Video Conference. So there were industry people from all over the state that went to Mid-Maine Tech, and career and tech students, as well as some middle school kids, went and learned about a variety of different options in the broadcasting career. Experts from the field were all over. Kids got to work with college professors as well as industry people for this event. So this was a great first year for this workshop. Just a couple of additional things that I want to talk about. First is enrollment. We have received all applications by the first deadline. Applications for HCTC are rolling, so students can still submit applications at this time. So we're hoping we get a few more. Right now, we've received about 206 applications, and I'm still working through, did students get into the program of their choice? So applications are a little bit down from last year to this year, but next month, all of that will be done in terms of enrollment, and so you'll get your typical spreadsheets so that you can see numbers and what programs students have applied to. So we'll have that all done. We'll also have, by the May meeting, the bridge testing. The bridge year cohort testing will be done as well. Students took AccuPlacer today, so we'll be sure that you have that update as well. Also learned from the state, Mr. Higgins may also mention this, the construction list and the application list is looking to be presented to the State Board of Education in middle of June. So we will know more at the end of this school year where we ended up on the list for our construction application. Finally, our Students of the Month for Rotary Club. We actually have our next Student of the Month dinner coming up after April vacation. We'll honor our last 3 students of the month, and this time it will actually be hosted at HCTC. Once a year we do our Rotary Student of the Month at HCTC, and our culinary kids cook for them rather than it being at China Hill. So after April break, we'll do that with Rotary Club. But our January and February Students of the Month were actually both from Ellsworth High School. Hannah Sargent is a bridge year student who's in our CNA and CRMA Health Occupations program. She was our January Student of the Month, and then our February Student of the Month is a junior from Ellsworth High School, Sydney Hamilton. A lot of people got to know Sydney from her Facebook Live work during the winter sports season, being at all of the basketball games, and she's a very involved Bridge Year kid in our multimedia program. So both students were honored at the last Rotary dinner, and we will have our next Rotary Student of the Month dinner after break. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corman Ramos?
Good evening. In curriculum news, our Never Stop Learning PD initiative, where we're having after-school programs on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for teachers to receive contact hours and learn new skills from their colleagues, has continued on. And our this month, includes a workshop by high school teacher Heidi Omler on assignment management strategies, a workshop that sounds like a lot of fun by Jen Bernhardt on how to use the model of an escape room for student engagement, an elementary workshop by Alexis Chapman and Susan Frost on Seesaw, which is an app that was introduced through the Momentum pilot, and other digital formative assessment tools demonstrated by HCTC teacher Michelle Cody. I actually attended the workshop on Seesaw today in the elementary school, and I believe there was 13 teachers came, and we're really excited to learn about the work that both Alexis and Susan have done on the app. They've been able to, investigate it themselves on their own time and really have done some amazing things in the classroom. So I'm hoping we can ask them to come to a presentation at some point, because it has a lot of exciting possibilities. And I learned a lot and found out that it's actually something we may be able to use K-12 to travel with students when they do work on the iPad with some of the videos that we saw during the Momentum presentation, that kind of thing. It can travel with the student to the next grade. They can take pictures of work they do with manipulatives. There's all kinds of things, and it goes into a file and can be sent to the next grade, where the next year's teacher can look and see the kind of work they've done. So it's got some exciting possibilities. Our Title 1A Literacy Night this year will be held on May 14th at EEMS, and will feature Grayson from Birds Acre doing a presentation, and we'll have book giveaways and fun activities to take home to support student reading. Parents and their children will be able to come and do some kind of make and take activities, learn how to work with their kids at home, and have some books to take home as well. Our reading review team, our plan for reviewing our reading program in Ellsworth has shifted a little bit over the last month, thanks to our weather. Because due to our snow days, we were unable to meet as a representative group to discuss our reading program on March 23rd at our PD date, which stopped being a PD day. So I went to the CIA team and talked to them about another way that we could get some input from teachers across the district. And we created some surveys that we sent out to teachers in all the schools to ask for their insights into the reading preparedness of our students, as well as the strengths and deficits of our reading materials and resources. And so far, we've gotten some really insightful comments and have been really, really helpful to look at how each of the teachers work with their kids, what they see their kids being good at and needing help with, and also in the resources. And I've asked for this feedback to be completed by April 13th so that I can compile those responses quickly and review them with the leadership team. We'll then plan to have school-wide discussions about the next steps, so that if there is training involved, if there are resources that we need, that we can get those going before the summer, and teachers will really know what they're looking at for next year. Our comprehensive needs assessment, this is the document that we are going to be sending in to the state. It is a federal mandate now that is tied to our federal grant money. But essentially what it does is it asks us to work together as a group and as a school and as a district to look at the strategic plans for the school district. So there's lots of different prompts. It asks for principals to reflect on different things that happen at the schools. And as we've broken it up into sections, we'll be meeting with a representative group of community members, board members, parents, teachers, throughout the district to reflect on that and to be able to complete that by July 1st. Our first planning meeting for this will be held this Thursday in the the EEMS library, and I've contacted all of the members who have agreed to be on that committee, and I want to thank them in advance, who have agreed to participate, for coming, and we'll look forward to their insight. On Thursday, the first session, we'll be looking at school data and discuss how it's collected in the district and used for instructional decision-making. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our superintendent's report. Mr. Higgins?
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience, and the viewing public. I'd like to start off tonight by speaking briefly about the Ellsworth Middle School Principal Screening and Selection Advisory Committee. Members of that committee will be meeting this coming Thursday, April 12th at 5 o'clock, and the purpose of that initial meeting will be to review the selection timeline and develop criteria and questions for the interview and selection process. Members of that committee are Kirsten Jester, middle school teacher who was selected by the Ellsworth Education Association. Leadership team members April Clifford and Lynn Maddox. Ellsworth School Board Personnel Committee members Paul Markosian and Rob Hudson, and myself. The intent is to complete the search, screening, and selection process and bring a candidate to the May board meeting for consideration by you. We'd also like to report on a recent meeting that was held between Hancock County school superintendents and law enforcement members from multiple agencies across Hancock County. Hancock County School Superintendents Association and law enforcement officials from multiple agencies, and the agencies range from municipal law enforcement agencies that serve communities and school systems in Hancock County Sheriff's Department officials, and Maine State Police, met on April 2nd to discuss emergency management plans with a particular focus on scenarios involving an armed intruder. And if you recall from the community forum, there were a lot of questions and comments with regard to that. The meeting was very informative and productive, and we're very fortunate in Hancock County that we have a number of law enforcement officers who are trained in multiple approaches to the armed intruder scenario. We've scheduled a second meeting with that group on April 27th to further discuss emergency management planning and learn more about different approaches to that particular scenario. And that will be part of our ongoing work as a follow-up to the community forum that we held, and I will keep you apprised on that. On a related note, Ellsworth Fire Chief Richard Tupper, who by the way is a 1983 Ellsworth graduate, and myself met with another EHS graduate from the class of 2005, Tristan Werner, and I think if you look in the back of the room tonight, Mr. Werner is here. We heard a presentation from Tristan on our initiative called Stop the Bleed. Stop the Bleed is a program launched by the White House back in 2015. It's intended to organize and drive education and training to provide bystanders to become trained, equipped, and empowered to help in a bleeding emergency prior to the arrival of professional first responders. Mr. Werner's plan is to seek funding through grants and other means to support implementation of the program, not just in our schools, but throughout the Ellsworth community. And the program includes a training program for people to be trained in how to stop the bleed, and a kit of materials for each classroom and public space in our schools. Based on our conversation with Mr. Werner, he's received commitments from other community organizations and has requested the participation of the Ellsworth School Department. Both Chief Tupper and myself are very supportive of the initiative, both as an addition to our efforts in school safety planning, but also as a community-based and community-oriented program. I think it would be a valuable component to add to our emergency management plan and program. And while you don't need to formally act tonight, I would encourage the board to express support for Mr. Werner in his efforts to move forward with this initiative. And I know he is here this evening in the event that you have any questions. I know it's not a formal presentation, but if you have any questions for him. If you do, we'd ask him to come up front.
Yeah. Wonder if you could tell us a little bit in your own words about the program and also how it's been implemented elsewhere and how it's been received.
So the program's been around since 2015. It hasn't really grown legs till recently. In the state of Maine, Scarborough has implemented Stop the Bleed training to the public. There's nurses throughout this school system, this district, and really throughout the state that are getting on board and getting trained. Now, I see it as a national call to action to provide training for everybody, because the first responders are the bystanders. And that's with severe bleeding and hemorrhaging. Once that blood's out, you can't get it back in, and that patient can go downhill quick. And whether it's a chainsaw accident out in the sticks of Waltham, or a car accident, or a terrible, active shooter event, I think it's something that is good for the toolbox, and I'd like to see the training into the schools. We're teaching kids a lot of other things. We've got the fire department in there already talking about, home safety, meeting places, checking fire detectors. I'd love to see it go that way, go that far. But right now, we're really just looking at providing the training from either the fire department or the police department to the public, free. I say free, I'm looking to fundraise, and with the help of Healthy Acadia, should be feasible and tangible, something I can do to help make the school a little safer. Anything else?
Any other question?
I can't see how we could possibly say no to something that's going to assist in the safety and the health of our children. I totally agree. If there's something that we can put in place that helps in any way, in any incident, then I'd be very happy to accept your help.
Well, I appreciate that. I can leave you all with a few little handouts here. And there's a website. I urge you to just kind of check it out.
Okay.
The www.bleedingcontrol.org.
Thank you.
Dan, are we looking for any type of motion to show our support for the program?
At this time, I don't believe that's necessary. I know, in speaking with Tristan, he's going to work on the fundraising components. If and when he's awarded a grant, we may want to take an action at that time.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the community and the school for putting your time and energy into the program.
Thank you. Yeah, and I really just came here to introduce myself with the introduction of the program. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To conclude my report, I would like to report on a couple of new hires, although Mr. Newitt has already done so. 2 assistant track coaches at EMS, Kate Anderson and Stacy Bousquet. And also reference 2 letters of retirement and 1 letter of resignation. Jermaine Hardison in the food service department at the high school has moved on to take another opportunity. And we received a retirement letter from grade 3 teacher Judy Frazier at EES, and also from a longtime food service employee Don Jordan at Ellsworth High School. Wondering if Don will continue to substitute like Tommy has over the years. We do have, and this is a call for members of the public, vacancies for FY19. Science teacher at Ellsworth High School, grade 8 teacher at EEMS, focusing on social studies and science. Physical education teacher at EEMS, grades 4 through 8. Library media specialist at Ellsworth High School, and principal grades 5 through 8 at EMS. And the final piece tonight is, didn't report on snow, although I've heard several of the other administrators mention snow this evening. But do want to place responsibility on the fact if we do have another storm day, we can look to Mr. Newitt because he has scheduled graduation or promotion at the middle school for the day before the last day of school. So let's hope it doesn't snow, Mr. Newitt. But unless you have any questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee reports.
Do you want to go in any particular order?
No, I just, no.
Okay. Policy Committee met on April 3rd. We have 2 things to take up under new business.
Okay.
But I do want to mention at this point that the Policy Committee has requested Superintendent Higgins to make time on the agenda for the April 24th workshop to discuss IKF graduation requirements. Discussion to be held by the full board. And so that's not going to be under either of our other 2 areas tonight.
Okay, thank you. I know that the Finance Committee has probably met because Paul substituted for me.
And we actually have not met.
You have? Well, then I won't feel guilty any longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe there's a,
We're meeting tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So
And-
you're off the hook.
yes, thank you. And Personnel Committee has, I believe, we have not had any negotiating sessions since our last board meeting.
That is correct.
Yeah, so nothing new to report.
Okay. Item I, old business. Says none. Item J, new business. Student and staff presentation.
This evening, we have a student presentation for you. We have EMS student Willis Hutchins, who's going to come and present his Eagle Project proposal. Mr. Hutchins.
Good evening. My name is Will Hutchins from Troop 86, Ellsworth, Maine. Next one. This is my BSA Eagle Scout Service Project requirements in order to do it. And next one. EMS baseball dugouts. All schools in our league have.
Excuse me, Will,
Yes.
if you speak into the microphone,
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the folks who are watching this
Yeah.
online will be able to hear you better.
EMS baseball dugouts. All schools in our league have. We're the only school that doesn't have dugouts, and also for weather protection, safety, team unity, equipment organization during games. And there is what we have now, current EMS baseball team facilities. We just have benches, and here is the blueprints. I have more here for you guys to look at. Baseball dugouts proposed blueprints prepared by Andrew McCullough, engineer consultant. Not shown on blueprints: helmet racks, bat racks, and benches. And project steps: beneficiary initial approval, complete and approved. BSA Eagle Scout approval, complete and approved. Eagle account set up at Maine Savings Bank, complete. Estimated cost $11,000. Estimate prepared by John Colby at Colby Builders. Insert. And fundraiser spaghetti dinner on March 31st, 2018. I raised $1,370.26. Local businesses donations. EEMS spring concert Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018. Darling's ice cream truck. Car wash Saturday, May 26th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Location to be announced. And EMS Fine Arts Festival Wednesday, June 6th, 2018. Bake sale, bottle drive if needed. Lobster roll fundraiser if needed. Building permit. I still don't have that yet. And this is what I need to do to build them and complete project before August 31st, 2018. And remaining funds will go to the softball dugouts. And volunteers, family, friends, and community volunteers over the age of 18. Troop 86 scouts and volunteers under the age of 18. Any questions?
I read through the packet, thought it was pretty thorough. And I like the fact that you're picking a project that is going to benefit our school and looking into the situation that we are the only ones that don't have dugouts. That's nice to pick something that's going to add to our school and impress people from other areas when they come to play baseball with us.
How long ago did you start the project?
I started it. I think it was when I started it during the spaghetti dinner, which was April. I forgot when it was, but March. In March.
But you must have started planning and thinking about it before that spaghetti dinner, so.
Yeah, a week before the spaghetti dinner.
Oh, wow.
Excellent. You've already
Well,
accomplished
Yeah,
a lot.
A lot.
yeah, you've come a long way in a short time, so
Thank you.
congratulations on that, and we wish you success on getting there the rest of the way.
It's an ambitious undertaking.
Please keep us updated on your progress.
All right, thank you.
I think it might be appropriate to ask Mr. Hutchins to come back when they're completed, maybe bring some pictures
Sure.
of the
That would be
completed
nice.
project.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have to get off it.
I would also like to say thank you very much for picking a project that's gonna be beneficial to the community, the schools, and the students. It's really very, very much appreciated, very appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 2, discussion and consideration of overnight out-of-state travel to National Leadership and Skills Conference. Is that you?
Hello. You, in the school board packet, should have received what we gave out to parents for the Nationals trip, the costs and the breakdown of the flight. We are requesting approval to send 30 staff and students to Nationals. We're taking most of the plane. We would be leaving on Sunday, June 24th, and arriving back on Saturday, June 30th. They are chartering a flight, so it will just be skills participants and chaperones on that flight. So it's a direct service flight. In the back of the packet I had given you, I gave you what the breakdown of expenditures were. The grand total is listed at about $45,000 for all of these kids and staff to go, but that includes if we were to fundraise every dime. I typically ask every sending school district to pay for the registration cost of their own students. Every school system has always done that for their kids. So the $6,300 for the registration fee would come off the bottom line. The other thing that is included in this bottom line is if we were to fundraise for the staff trips. The last several years, you have been very generous and allowed us to use budgeted funds through HCTC to pay for the staff trips because they are giving up a week of their time to go. So we would take that out of this as well. And we would request that we do that again this year. I have gone through the budget. I have the money to do it. We had started a few years ago when we were consistently doing well at Nationals, began building money into the budget then. We certainly didn't anticipate this level of success, but I have gone through thoroughly, and I'm going to talk to Carolyn, and there is funds there that we can move money so that we can enable staff to do this. This would be a trip where every single teacher who coached a kid is willing to go. So I have, I believe, 5 teachers that have gold medalists going, and all 5 want to go with their kids and coach their kids. So again, I say this every year, I'm always amazed that my staff is willing to give up a week, their first week of summer vacation, to go do this and be with their students during this time. So we would just request your approval, and if you have any questions about the trip.
Where is it? Tell me again.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and it's actually a really well planned out trip. The kids get to do some extra things. They get to do the Belle of Louisville evening cruise, and that's included in the cost of the registration. They get to go to the Kentucky Derby Museum and get a tour of that, and then they actually get to eat there and eat at the chef's table, which is famous at the Kentucky Derby. So they get to do some extra things on top of the professional development they'll get with industry people while they're there. The hotel that we stay at is the State of Maine Hotel. There's really nobody else that stays in these hotels during this week. It's typically states take over certain hotels. Last year, Maine and Vermont were in the same hotel, and there were no outside guests. It was all skills kids and staff. So that's another really nice benefit of this. We don't have to pay for transportation while we're down there. We could get a rental, but we never do. We use the bus. There's a Skills USA bus that is for the state of Maine that is given to us for the week, so we just use that all week, so that saves money as well.
Well,
You ready to entertain a motion?
Yeah, I need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the out-of-state trip for Skills USA, as well as the funding to be released to pay for staff to attend with their students.
I second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank
Doing
you.
this.
overnight out-of-state travel to New England Theater Festival as presented.
Yes, and because Show Choir departed this afternoon for their journey to Disney to compete in Florida, I will be presenting on their behalf. I believe it's in your packet. Director Jasmine Ireland has submitted a written proposal which outlines the one-act play production and the regional and state drama festival successes, and also provides a bit of an itinerary of what this trip will be. They've already embarked on fundraising, did a benefit performance this past Sunday. I believe they raised about $1,600. Also raised another $700 through sales of a commemorative print. I'll try to get that out, by student Emma Henry, and they're going to continue to fundraise. I think this is a great opportunity for our students to, much as the Skills USA, to travel outside of the state and demonstrate what they can do. So I would recommend that you support this request pending final raising of necessary funds.
When is this going to take place?
This trip is April 27th through the 29th, week after school vacation.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the overnight out-of-state trip for travel to the New England Theater Festival as presented.
Second?
Discussion?
I just want to mention that having seen the one-act play 3 times, including on Sunday at the Grand, I think Ellsworth High School, which won the Class B award for this whole, the entire state of Maine for this production, is going to be, I think everyone else in New England who's going to get to see this play is going to be pretty overwhelmed by it. It's a great production.
And this is the first time, I believe, that Ellsworth has won the state.
It's the very
Class B.
very first time, so
That's correct.
it's pretty historic.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. J3, first read of amended policies.
So as I mentioned earlier, we met on April 3rd and reviewed policies, and we have under number 3, 5 policies that we are recommending be accepted as a first read with amendments.
May I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the first read of the following amended policies as recommended by the Policy Committee. Technology Protection Program, Curriculum Development and Adoption, Life-Sustaining Emergency Care, Grievance Procedure for Persons with Disabilities, Admission of Homeless Students.
I second that.
Discussion?
If I may, just to do
Sure.
a quick, brief overview of what the amendments are. First, with the Technology Protection Program policy, which is one you addressed last month. Policy Committee was looking to institute a sliding fee for students and families who had reduced and free lunch eligible students. Program fee is $35 per year. First read has a sliding scale. Reduced students would be $20 per student per year, not to exceed $30 per family. Free lunch eligible students, $10 per student per year, not to exceed $15 per family. With regard to curriculum development and adoption, minor changes. In the existing policy, there was reference to who would be the liaison between the school board and curriculum work in the school department. Because you have a CIA committee at the board level, language was changed to reflect the CIA committee would serve as that liaison. There was also language that would permit the board or require the board to review course catalogs prior to distribution, and that the board would review and adopt and approve all course descriptions and courses of study, but took one piece out, which I believe was one piece-
Courses, curriculum guides.
curriculum guides were taken out of that. For policy IHBAK, which is life-sustaining emergency care, was to propose adding, for examples of life-sustaining emergency care, the use of an automated external defibrillator, which we have in our schools. Policy IHBAL, the grievance procedure for persons with disabilities. Simple amendment, which would be to change language which determined who should receive complaints about grievances for this particular policy, not to include the name of the actual person, but just the title, the ADA 504 Compliance Coordinator. Previous policy listed an individual. So that was the change there. And the final policy, JFABD, this is admission of homeless students. Policy J, as you know, falls out of line with policy I, which was the section of the manual policy committee was addressing this month. This policy came forward as a result of the Title I review taking place. Our curriculum coordinator, Rachel Corman Ramos, provided a draft which seeks to implement more language with regard to dispute resolution processes under the McKinney-Vento Act. In our conversation with the policy committee, the belief was that the proposed language in the policy would be better served being in a set of rules rather than the policy language. So the first read includes the language within the policy. The second read and approval will include a separate document that provides the dispute resolution process in a separate document.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Acknowledgement and acceptance of policy committee review.
So, under number 4, there is a lengthy list, which I will not read out all of those to you. These policies were all reviewed by the policy committee, and we are recommending that these be reviewed and reapproved with no change.
I move that we acknowledge and accept the review of the following policies with no changes as recommended by the policy committee. IHAI, Hancock County Technical Center Live Outside Work. IHBAA, Referral and Use of General Education Interventions. IHBAC, Child Find. IHBG, Homeschooling. IHBGA, Homeschooling Participation in School Programs. IKE, Promotion, Retention, and Acceleration of Students. IJJ, Instructional and Library Media Materials Selection. IJNDB, Student and Computer and Internet Use. IJOA, Field Trips and Other Student Travel. IJOC, School Volunteers. IL, Evaluation of Instructional Programs. ILA, Student Assessment. ILD, Educational Research, Student Submission to Surveys, Analyses, or Evaluations. And IMBB, Exemption from Required Instruction.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. 4-0. Item 5, second read of 2018-2019 Ellsworth School Department Calendar.
As you recall, you did a first read of this policy and this calendar last month. And we did receive some feedback from the Ellsworth Education Association as part of our meet and consult requirements. The amount of feedback is very thoughtful, but it's somewhat limited. And I think one of the reasons it's limited is because there is only so much that we can do as an individual district in Hancock County to change our calendar. As you know, we're required by law to meet the requirements of career and technical education calendars in a particular region or a center service area, where you can have no more than 5 dissimilar days in your calendar. So over the past number of years, several years, Hancock County school systems have had very similar calendars, and this year is no exception to that. But I would like to provide the feedback that was given by our association. And one of the comments would like to see the professional days, and I presume these are the professional days that precede the Thanksgiving holiday, to be moved to the Friday prior to Columbus Day because it matches up with a professional development conference for teachers in that particular school on that date. Another conversation with regard to the November 19th and 20th professional days would be to perhaps put one in October and one in May and I believe we used to have that a number of years ago. Kind of spreads those days out, and the suggestion was to perhaps alternate for every other year with this type of a schedule. And I would just add as a comment on that, that is a possibility. I know making that change at this point in time in the year would be very difficult, because it's my understanding that several other Hancock County school systems have already approved their calendars, which have their professional days in that week of November. However, we talk about that on a regular basis. That may be something that we could talk about and convince other school systems to do. And there were a couple of comments with regard to starting with students prior to the Labor Day holiday. The specific comment here was there are mixed thoughts on starting with students before Labor Day. And I think a lot of people would have that, but I think as was mentioned last month, historically in Ellsworth, our collective bargaining agreement has said that the staff work year, teacher work year, will not begin prior to the last week in August, and I think the interpretation has been the student year will start in September. For a variety of reasons, and Joanne, you outlined those reasons last month. So the feedback was good. Unfortunately, the feedback results in a situation where the comments, with the exception of perhaps alternating on an every other year basis, we are not able to implement. So with that being said, would recommend that the calendar as was presented to you last month, with one additional comment made on that appears. If you recall, earlier in the school year, we had a Friday in which we, based upon the weather, might have been able to have a delayed start to the school day. Because it was a Friday, the superintendents, early in the morning, about 4 o'clock, had the conversation of whether or not it would be a worthwhile academic day for students and for staff, because you'd be coming in 2 hours late, and it's an early release PLC day on a Friday. So we made the decision to cancel that day. But what we talked about subsequent to that was, how can we ensure that we don't lose a day when we don't necessarily have to? So we've all agreed in Hancock County to include language that says, in the event that inclement weather on a Friday results in the need to delay the start of school, the day will automatically be a student day and there'll be no PLC on that day. So that would be the one piece that's added in here.
I move that we approve second read and adopt ESD 2018-2019 school calendar as presented and recommended by the superintendent, with the additional accommodation made for a delayed start on a snow day.
Second.
Discussion?
I have just one comment, and this relates back to the feedback that we received. Unfortunately, at this point of the year, it's really too late to do much. If we could ask in future years to have input prior to your development with the county superintendents, that might be a more productive way, as opposed to developing it first and then asking for the input.
We can do that.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. 4-0. Okay. Item 6, discussion and consideration of administrative contract.
Yes, I have one administrative contract for your consideration. I believe it was included in your packet. If you recall, back in February, you approved the contract for high school assistant principal Rebecca Wright, and at that time, we indicated to you that we would assess her performance between then and now, and also communicate with her as to her desire to continue in the position. I tell you, Mrs. Wright is interested in continuing the position, and Mr. Clifford and I have both been pleased with her performance. So the recommendation is that she be granted an amendment to her current contract, which expires in June of this year, to a 2-year contract that increased her salary by 3%, consistent with what other administrators received.
I move to approve the administrator contract in accord with the terms and conditions of employment as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Number 7, budget update.
Yes, we'll try to run through this budget update in as an efficient a manner as possible. These documents were sent to you in your packet. One thing I'd like to address first and foremost, when you look at the summary sheet, which breaks down the budget over the last 2 years with the difference between 17-18 and 18-19, we did discover one mistake in the budget today, which happened to be a duplicate of expenditures. So what you saw in your workshop, which showed a 7.49% increase in the budget, with everything included, actually is a 7.23% increase in the budget. It was about a $53,000 duplication. Hopefully we'll find a couple more of those as we move through the process. But what I would like to do for you this evening is just quickly run through a couple of pieces. One being what is requested in this budget in terms of our priorities. And as you know, a budget presentation is a reflection of your priorities for your school system. And talk about where the significant increases in each of our cost categories are. And then also talk a little bit about a model that is up for discussion to help us equitably and adequately fund operations for our Career and Technical Education Center. So when you look at the budget that we have for you, when you look at the regular instruction lines, where you see an increase of $145,000, or roughly 2.5%, the cost drivers in there would be 2 new teaching positions, one at the grade K level to address what we would anticipate as enrollment. Again, we try to have enrollment at the K level to be a maximum of 18. If you looked at what Ms. Gabbianelli provided tonight, you'll notice those classrooms are 19 in 4 of the classrooms and 20 in 1. Obviously, at the time we approved the budget last year, we were at the 18 level or below. You're not going to change and add a teacher in the middle of the school year. But we've incorporated a 6th kindergarten teacher for next year, and we'll gauge that enrollment as the registrations take place. Also, a new grade 4 teacher to accommodate that enrollment fluctuation that takes place. This is the year that comes around where we have to add a position rather than be able to shift a position. We've also, as we've been trying to do over the past several years, have included in the budget proposal a Section 504 teacher. As you've heard discussed on prior occasions, we have a fairly good size number of students who are eligible under Section 504. Currently, those caseloads are being managed by our special education staff. Adding a Section 504 teacher to that mix would allow some relief from those responsibilities for those teachers and allow a teacher to oversee that program for 504 students. So when you look at the total new staff that would be involved in those 3 positions, you're talking about $178,000. So that is more than the overall increase in regular instruction. You may ask, why is the total of new staff more than the overall total in the category? Reason being, there are a number of other areas. For example, we purchased math resources last year, which is a significant expense. That's not in the budget this year. We also had a number of retirements for regular education teachers. And when you have teachers who have 30, 40 years experience at the top of the scale retiring, we typically budget at a lower level. So that would account for the difference. When you look at a 2.5% increase in regular instruction, that's a relatively typical increase. Under special instruction, you'll see it's a 5.2% increase, or about $175,000. I can tell you where the major increase there is. We're looking at 5 new ed techs at the kindergarten level based upon incoming student needs. That's $150,000 of your increase right there. Okay. Career and technical education, you're looking at a $150,000 increase, or 25%. The majority of that comes in staffing, and again, this is a reflection of priorities. To help us with providing services to our students who receive academic support at HCTC, with a focus on math and science, we've included a full-time teacher, certified in math and science, which will permit teachers from Ellsworth High School who are currently traveling back and forth during the day to provide those services to stay at Ellsworth High School and be able to restore some electives that were previously eliminated, but also address an incoming freshman class that needs an additional section. We have included funding for we call a floating OSHA certified ed tech, who would provide services in a couple of different ways. One would be to serve as a substitute for any of our teachers who are going to be out either sick, for professional development opportunities or those types of things, but also to support teachers in classrooms. This would be a full-time position, somebody who's OSHA certified, and what this would allow is not just support in the classroom, but any time that a teacher is out, we provide those students to continue doing their work that otherwise they might not be able to do if you didn't have a sub with that certification. Based on what we hope will be sufficient enrollment, we've proposed increasing the carpentry teaching position from half-time to full-time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also looking at, because of program needs, increasing the early childhood ed tech from 0.6 full-time equivalent to 1 full-time equivalent. Okay. Total of those new and expanded staff positions is $128,000. That takes a significant amount of that increase. The other piece, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, that budget also includes an allocation that we're required to pay to the welding and marine trades programs to support their programming, and this comes out of our allocation we received from Augusta of approximately $160,000. That's reflected as an expenditure for us, but there is a revenue to offset it on the other side. We also have included replacement of doors for the automotive, diesel, and carpentry areas, about $16,800. And as we've been asking for the past couple of years, if you've ever gone up to the restaurant activity on Wednesdays, you'll know that parking is at a premium. So what we've looked to is to resurface all of the parking areas and to expand the parking area, and that comes at a cost of $77,000. And again, you may say, if you add up those figures, that comes up to more than the total increase. What you need to remember is last year we experienced significant costs with the renovation of the facility for the biomed program and also the equipment that was necessary to outfit the biomed lab. And that's about $170,000, $180,000. So if you add that into your mathematical calculation, that's how you get to the $150,000 increase. Other instruction, this includes your summer and after-school programs and your co- and extracurricular activities. We have a projected or proposed increase of $168,000, almost 30%. What's included in those lines would be $28,000 to support summer and after-school services that we have previously paid for out of various grants. We like to reflect them in the initial draft of the budget so that you as a school committee and our public know these are our priorities, is to provide support for our students both after school and in the summer, and that's to provide support as we move forward to a proficiency-based model. We also have at EEMS $30,000 in increased supplies, but also to support the implementation of an athletic trainer to cover home events and be at the school a couple of days a week. Ellsworth High School co-curricular stipends be an $18,000 increase, which would be proposed increase for department heads, which Ellsworth High School has but are not funded, but also an increase in VPA costs for people to help put on the shows that the VPA group puts on. Co-curricular equipment, there's a request for $14,000 to upgrade VPA equipment for the theater. At Ellsworth High School under athletics, $23,000 for an athletic trainer. Again, we've been asking for that for the past couple of years. $23,000 would get you coverage at all home events and also 2 days a week to support students. As we've also tried to do over the past couple of years is to have the school department take over ownership of the football program. $17,629 are included in this budget proposal to allow that to happen. And also some coaching stipends at the high school. Girls freshman basketball, when we look at the numbers we see coming up, Mr. Frost is anticipating the need to fill that position. And also the unified coaching staff. For the past 2 years, we've been able to support that program through grants. We no longer can. So we've included funding for a unified coach and an assistant coach. Those 3 positions come to about $5,300. So that takes up your increase in other instruction. Student and staff services, and this is where there is a significant proposed increase. This includes your curriculum and assessment. This includes your school nursing program. This includes your guidance and your library. It includes instructional technology. Total projected increase is $387,425, or 23%. What's included in that figure? A great deal of it is staffing. I can tell you that we are requesting a full-time licensed clinical social worker at EEMS. We are looking to increase a full-time instructional technology staff person to help with the increased number of support tickets that are generated. And when you look at the amount of technology that we've increased over the past several years, including what's in the budget this year, the existing staff, in order to stay up with the tickets, are not able to work on their staff and technology integration. So we've included that position. We've included the instructional coach position that we currently have funded through a grant full-time in this particular budget. We've also included a full-time math interventionist position. As you know, we recently, in the past year, purchased new materials for our math program, K through 12. We also know that our math scores are not where we would like them to be. So this is a position that's designed to support students who need help in math to help increase our achievement in math. We've also included in this particular cost center 3/4 of an administrative assistant level position. This is shared between multiple departments. Half of this position would be dedicated to the instructional technology department. 1/4 of this would be dedicated to curriculum assessment. The other 1/4 of this will be in food service, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. Okay. When you look at the total for that newly proposed staff, out of that $387,000, that's $265,000. Okay. But again, if you look at those positions, you look at what those priorities are, those are definitely areas that we can see to improve our services for students and staff. Okay. There are some other pieces that are also included in this. Under curriculum, summer teacher work and purchase services that have, over the past couple of years, been funded through grants are included in this draft. And again, that summer work is critical to our continued ability to move forward with a proficiency-based program. There's $24,000 reflected there. Instructional staff training, which includes professional development opportunities, travel, and tuition reimbursement, shows a $35,000 increase from last year. Okay. Also in instructional technology, the purchase of iPads from the DOE pilot, and if you think back to the Momentum pilot that we're participating in, for grades K and 1, those iPads come along with participating in the grant. The additional iPads to make grades 2 and 3 1-to-1 didn't come with the grant. We were able to use them this year. We've included about $25,000 to pay for those for next year. There is also increases in expenses as the result of changes to cable television technology in Ellsworth. As you know, Spectrum purchased Time Warner, and there's been a change in expenses because of that, and also an upgrade to the wireless connectivity in all of our schools, and those two items come at a cost of about $35,000. Okay. System administration, which is the school board, superintendent, and your business office, we're seeing a $6,800 increase, or 1.3%. It's simply in wages and benefits, fairly efficient. School administration, you're seeing a $31,000 increase, and school administration is all of your principal's offices. That's a 3.76% increase. That is in wages and benefits and some retirement benefits. It also includes, and I think this is important, 2 new positions, and we're not sure exactly what we're going to call them, but we're going to refer to them as security positions. We've included funding for 175 days, 3 hours a day at both Ellsworth Elementary School and Ellsworth High School, someone to man the main office and the entry mechanisms, camera, remote lock, to allow people in and out of the school as necessary. That comes at a cost of about $14,000. Maintenance, which is another area where we have a significant increase. Our new director, Chuck Turnbull, has done a thorough review of his program and needs across the district. What he's requesting is an increase of 2 current half-time positions, one in the custodial area and one in the maintenance area, to expand those to full-time to address identified needs. One of those positions cleans a portion of the school half-time. There are certainly needs to expand those services to other areas of the school. And the maintenance position would be focused on outside needs. And again, that's something we've talked about since we became the Ellsworth School Department, again, is making sure that our facilities are not just in tip-top condition, but aesthetically pleasing as well. There are a lot of those types of activities that can be done by expanding that position. That comes at a cost of about $33,000. Because of problems that we've had with uniforms, we've gone to a new uniform vendor, and please notice both our custodial and maintenance staff and our bus driving staff, when you see their uniforms, they really look good. But the improvement in service and the improvement in quality has resulted in increased costs. It's about a $2,500 increase for the maintenance department. The bulk of the area in which you see the increase in maintenance would be in facilities needs. The biggest ticket item is the skylight at Ellsworth High School, and if you went to any events in the gymnasium at the high school this year, you'll notice that we had a beautiful blue tarp hanging from the ceiling. I think that's 2 years in a row we've had that. Historically speaking, I think it was back in the 80s at the Bangor Auditorium we used to do that. But we've determined that a primary cause of that is the skylight, which is the original skylight when the building was constructed. That comes with a $90,000 cost to replace that and eliminate a skylight. Also included in those costs would be continuation of replacement of exterior doors at Ellsworth High School, which we've been doing over a 3-year period, and this is year 3 of that, $8,200. Installing a card reader for the kitchen door, okay, at a cost of $6,700. As a security measure, installing card readers for the elevator and stairway doors at Ellsworth High School. We come into Ellsworth High School in the main lobby. For the after-school period of time, what's required of us is to, part of our plan, is to lock down the hallway doors so that there's not access to the 2nd and 3rd floor. Some of the areas that we're finding challenges with that is we do have some courses that take place in the evenings there from outside people. We also have a number of activities taking place where people do need to get to the 2nd and 3rd floors. It also can enhance our security plan. So what Mr. Turnbull has done is gotten prices for us to install card readers like we have at a couple of our entrances for the elevator and all of those stairway doors at a cost of $18,000. Those safety pieces, we're also looking at some grant funding, so that may allow those to come out of this budget. But again, we're talking priorities. As part of our ongoing efforts to upgrade the windows in Ellsworth High School, we're looking at the cafeteria and the kitchen as areas this year. That's $10,000. Another area that we've been talking about for every year since we've been Ellsworth again is to have all of our athletic fields have irrigation systems like the football field at the high school does. In order to do that, you're talking $126,000. That's included in this particular budget. What's also included, and this is a little bit of a duplication, is 2 water sprinklers if the irrigation systems do not come through that would allow us to better hydrate those fields. That would come at a cost of $20,000. One item that I do not want to see come out of the budget is a replacement of the rubber chips on the EMS playground with cedar chips. We've looked at a lot of information over the past couple of years with regard to those in terms of them being carcinogenic, also impact on the environment. The study that I had spoken with the board about previously with regard to specifics of playgrounds has not come out. So I think at this point in time, we've included funds in here to have the existing chips taken away, replaced with cedar chips. That comes at a cost of almost $17,000. But to me, that needs to be a priority. It's consistent with what the surface is at the city playground down at the Knowlton Park. Theater upgrades and replacements. We're looking at replacing carpet, seating, and lights, $25,000. Vehicle inventory to support custodial and maintenance operations, a pickup with a plow. What Mr. Trumbull has in here is a new pickup with a plow at a cost of almost $49,000. We've already talked with him about maybe we need to look at something a little less new. I don't know if less new is the right way to go, but
Works.
gently used.
We know what you mean.
And also, in looking at our equipment, we have a lot of grounds to mow. This budget includes 2 mowers with baggers at a cost of about $7,400 apiece. All of those items are included in this proposal. Now, again, not all of these are going to survive, but I think it's important that you as a board know and our community knows these are the types of things that we need to do for the safety and security of our school buildings, for the condition of our school buildings, but also for the appearance of our school buildings. Remember, we're trying to sell the Ellsworth School Department to families that move here and also to school choice communities. Transportation, we have an $87,000 increase, almost 10%. What we have in there, as we talked about at a previous meeting, 1 replacement school bus, for which we have been approved for subsidy, by the way. That comes at a cost of about $18,000 into the budget. We have included, as a starting point, 3 new positions. One is a full-time mechanic position to replace the previous position that we had, which was a half-time mechanic, half-time bus driver. We've also included funding for 2 new bus drivers. One would be the other half of that current mechanic position. The other one would be a new driver to permit our director to direct on a more full-time basis. Currently, our director of transportation is serving as a substitute, and he's driving on a fairly regular basis. That bus could also accommodate potential influx of students from the Blue Hill Peninsula, which would be supported by tuition receipts. Those costs come at about $70,000. We have also converted, all of this is not a new expense, 6 of our substitute van drivers to employee status. We've adjusted substitute lines to account for the increase on those lines. And also in transportation, we've had an increase in uniform expenses. Interestingly enough, for our transportation department, the increase is about $4,500. In our food service department, the increase right now is $36,000 or 24%. And again, that increase is in the amount that we would be asking the city to contribute to support the program. What that includes is an increase in wages, which includes substitute wages, which have not been included in the budget before, about $11,000. New menu planning module for software, $924,000. The 1/4 of the administrative assistant position to support multiple tasks, which comes at a cost of about $10,000. And new cash registers and computers at the cost of $7,500 because the existing units that we have are supported by Windows XP. Does anyone remember Windows XP? Adult education would be the final piece. We're looking at a $14,600 increase, about 6.4%. And that is where we're converting a teacher level position that is funded partially by grants, partially by local, to be completely locally teacher funded. So when you look at those increases, that's what accounts for an increase in proposed expenditures of over $1.47 million. But again, I think even though it was a quick run through of those items, I think it's a demonstration of where our priorities are as a school system to continue to have us moving forward towards our ultimate goal. So I know I threw that at you in a very quick fashion. I know finance is meeting tomorrow evening. Are there any quick questions or comments with regard to that? On the revenue side, and I assure you this will be a much quicker overview. Again, we still do not have all of the information with regard to how CTE is going to be funded. But what we're looking at right now on the document that I provided to you was a mechanism by which we would be looking at an increase to the local appropriation. And again, it's very fluid because with the CTE piece, until we have a final determination on what that's going to look like, we can't make a decision on what the use of our fund balance is going to look like. Again, we have a fairly healthy fund balance. Right now, we're looking at including $800,000 of that to support this budget. Carolyn Heller and I have talked, and we think that we could absorb a little bit more than that. But again, we want to think about this over a multi-year period. We want to make sure that we maintain that fund balance for needs as they come up, but also comply with state law. So that may be a little bit flexible. But what I would like to talk briefly about is the CTE funding piece. When you look at the ED 279, and I know we've discussed this at a previous meeting, and you look at the document that I provided to you, we're slated to receive $1.241 million to support CTE programming. When you look at the budget document that's in front of you, the CTE budget as proposed is $1.77 million. We're looking at about a $540,000 gap between the amount of money coming from the state to support CTE programming and the amount of money projected to operate that program adequately and appropriately. A model that we have come up with as superintendents that will be presented to the advisory committee at the CTE on Thursday, and also the superintendents again on Thursday, is to take that gap between projected expenditures and the amount of money coming from the state, take our total projected enrollment, and right now the figure that we were planning to use was the October 1, 2017 state certified enrollment. Calculate from that enrollment and that gap in funding a per pupil amount and assess that to each sending school system based upon their number of students. So in essence, it would be a completely equitable sharing based upon enrollment of the gap between what the state is providing and what the budget is. The early returns from superintendents after looking at this are positive. It would require us to look at our cooperative agreement and make a change to it. But I think it's a model that can be beneficial to us moving forward. You know, over the past 4 years since we've been operating as Ellsworth, what we've seen at the end of the year with the CTE program is when we look at our final expenditures and the amount of money that we receive in terms of the subsidy the Ellsworth School Department received and the tuition that we charge sending students. In 2 of the 4 years, Ellsworth has ended up paying more than the other school systems on a per pupil basis. In the other years, we've ended up paying a little bit less. So it fluctuates, and probably if you were able to look at it historically, and we don't have those figures, you would find that that balances out over the years. The model that we're looking at would serve to eliminate that fluctuation. And the other part that supports that reasoning is, with this new funding model for career and technical education, Ellsworth School Department as the center that houses the programs, majority of the programs, we're required to maintain a separate fund balance for CTE. So if you do have an assessment to sending students that exceeds what you needed to operate, it goes into a fund balance that can be used to support that program in the subsequent year. So I think it's a pretty good model. Once we flesh it out and get advisory committee support from that and superintendent support and ultimately support from the other school boards in Hancock County, we can come back and show you the final figures. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to really take a look at how we're able to fund education. So, with that being said, that's an overview of the budget for you. Any questions?
So with the gap between what the state provides for CTE and what it would cost, you'd say you said it was around $500,000. And
Yes.
and based on enrollment from this past October, you would take that number of students to divide that into 500,000, whatever that amount is of the gap, and come up with a per pupil cost for all the sending schools, and that includes Ellsworth, right?
Yeah, that would include Ellsworth.
Yeah.
In the way that would work, when you looked at, and again, that was based upon our initial draft of this model.
Yeah.
The 260, we used that as a number because it was a hard and fast number. We didn't have our applications in at that point in time. You heard
Yeah.
Mrs. Bowles talk about 206 applications, I believe,
Yeah.
for this year. When we took those numbers and we divided them out, we came out to a per pupil amount of about $2,400.
Yeah.
Which, when you compare it to the amount of tuition that we charge, would be less.
Mhm.
But yes, it does include Ellsworth. Now, for example, RSU 25, they would take their number of students based upon that count, and we would assess them for that number of students. They would send us that money.
Mhm.
Ellsworth isn't going to send Ellsworth money. We simply have that as an expense in our budget.
Right.
But yes,
Yeah.
we've included that so that it would be equitable across the county.
Mhm.
And I think that was an important concept for all the superintendents to come to terms with.
And it seems to be well received by the other superintendents.
Thus far, it does.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk in depth on that on Thursday.
And that $500,000 number that you referenced includes the money that we have to send to the two other programs that are housed outside of.
That is correct. Out of that 1.241 million, and actually, I'm glad that you asked that, because there's still another twist. I said at the outset of this that CTE funding hasn't been finalized. We still have not received answers to all of the questions that we have. So in answering your question, yes, we're supposed to provide funding to support the two satellite programs. In the information we've received from the Department of Education, there is a specific allocation that's listed to support the welding program in Bucksport. There was not a specific amount listed to support the Marine Trades program at MDI. The reason for that is Marine Trades program didn't have expenses in FY17 because they didn't operate. FY17 expenses inflated by 3% are what was used in part to create this new funding model. So we've included that in the budget. We don't know if that's something we're going to have to send or not. We're anticipating that it is. The other piece is we've asked for a breakdown of how much money is allocated in each of the 7 areas and for each of the CTE programs. At this point in time, we're told that the department doesn't have it. Our contention is they certainly have it for the welding program because that's broken out in a separate amount. So we're hoping to get that information so we can determine are the allocations accurate and are they going to support us? Hopefully we'll have that information before we move too much further with the budget. The other piece, and you look at the fact that there's such a gap, which is a natural question, one of the reasons is when you look at FY17 expenses, I believe our budget for that year was around 1.27 or 1.28 million for CTE programming. For FY18, we had a significant increase because, if you recall, we added the biomed program. So we jumped up quite a significant amount, and about $180,000 of those expenses for that program didn't occur in FY17. They were in the FY18 budget. So that in their model, that's one thing the Department of Ed has to look at. How are they going to reflect expenses that really should be included in an allocation when they weren't? So I think that's one of the reasons for the large gap. But the DOE, at least the gentleman I spoke with, has acknowledged that it's not a perfect model, and we would accept feedback from the field. But here in Hancock County, as we've always done, we try to collaborate and make it work the best for all of our students, so
Mhm.
that's where we are.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Any further questions? Okay. Item 8, negotiations update.
As I said earlier, we have not met with the 3 associations that we are negotiating with since our last meeting, so.
Okay.
With our custodians and our bus drivers, the committee had directed me to send some dates to their representative. Unfortunately, all of the dates that we sent to get started happened
Yeah.
to be when their representative was going to be away on vacation.
Yeah.
Well, it was a vacation, I might add, so.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Item K, calendar announcements. Meeting schedule. Policy Committee meeting Tuesday, May 1st, 2018, Ellsworth School Department Conference Room, 6 p.m. School Board Workshop Tuesday, April 24th, 2018, Ellsworth School Department Conference Room, 6 p.m. Ellsworth School Board meeting Tuesday, May 8th, 2018, City Hall Council Chambers, 6:30 p.m. Item L, adjournment.
having no further business, I move that we adjourn this board meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.